Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PressPlay Inspired podcast. It's a podcast that does interviews with inspiring people, as well as provides custom content and monologues on topics to help our listeners like you find the tools, resources, and support they need to be their best inspired self. Today, we are really lucky. We get to have a good friend of mine and a very skilled coach with us today, Mr. Tim McAuley. Tim, you want to say hi to the listeners?
How's it going, listeners?
Awesome. So, Tim, first, thank you so much I know you're a very busy coach, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to meet with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Good. I am inspired. So everyone I invite on the podcast are people who in some way have inspired me to be a better person, inspired me to be a better self. And we've known each other randomly through all kinds of craziness. I think, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years, maybe. It's been a little while.
I think it's been longer than that. I just got a memory when I was in Wisconsin with Spiros. It was 6 years ago.
Yeah, so like
Maybe
6 years.
Net, right?
Yeah.
So I was moving to Virginia after the trip so I think you met me 2 years before I met Annette. So it's been about 8 years.
Yeah. So okay, wow. So we're getting older. Yay! Thanks for that one. No, I'm kidding. And so, but what I thought was interesting about the fact that we've known each other about 8 years. It was about I don't know, maybe let's just say 6 months because I'm bad with timing. About 6 months ago, I was going through some stuff personally. I was kind of struggling with how I wanted to show up as a mom and as a professional. And I'd gone to a couple coaches and paid for a few coaches and felt like actually kind of worse. And like I hadn't really got to where I needed to go. And for whatever reason, I called you up. I was like, do you still do that like coaching thing? And
this is odd because I had literally like 3 or 4 weeks before you contacted me, decided I was going to start coaching again. Or actually, I decided around this time the year before, but about 4 weeks before I put my shingle up on a temporary basis. So it's crazy.
The world is crazy.
Yeah.
But I think the reason that I came to you was the part that was inspiring to me. And earlier this year, I lost my dad in March to cancer. And I think that was like the catalyst for extra mojo going on for me. And you had openly shared about your journey with your father passing, not as recently, but still feeling pretty recently. And you went through quite a bit with that. And even before that had gone through a lot. And seeing you sort of share your story out loud, like raw and real and publicly, I don't know, maybe kind of trust that at least you would get it. At least you would kind of get what I was kind of struggling with. So what about what happened with your dad was kind of your catalyst for reigniting your coaching passion?
Sometimes you get into a situation, you're thrown into a situation in life where I don't know who it was, but there's some saying that you never know a person until you hold their feet over the fire, and you never really know yourself until you're in that crucible. And I was living in Vegas with my wife when I got the phone call that my dad probably wouldn't make it through the weekend and I need to come home and say goodbye to him. And when I got home, he and I had been talking, and this was May 2nd of 2018. Since the beginning of the year, I had called him every single day. He had chemo brain, so half the time he didn't even know he talked to me the day before. And I talked to him for a couple hours every single day that year. And we had discussed us moving out of the Vegas area into Texas area and then bringing him to Texas and helping him recuperate and recover. So when he saw me it bounced him back to life. And that stubborn bastard lasted another 47 days. And my weekend trip turned into 47 days because I had made a promise to him never leave him in nursing care, a nursing home ever. And that was where we had to put him after he got out of the hospital because he wasn't strong enough to be on his own. And so I found a place where I knew the administrators, and they let us have a room where I had a chair next to his bed, and I slept in it and lived there. So seeing myself go through that, and my dad was terrible at taking care of himself before he got chemo brain. So when I showed up, I was dealing with like a lot of stuff. His doctors had told him to stop driving 4 months before he did, or before he ended up in the hospital last time, and they saw him driving one day, so they had called home family services. Like, there was all kinds of shit. He didn't have health insurance, so I'm dealing with all of these bills and financial situations that I didn't even know existed, you know. And I'm living in a nursing home with him at that time. Uh, so by the end of it, like the after he before he passed, he actually came to one day and asked me to start writing again. My 2 books, he said, had helped him become a better person. And if I could write something that he could have read at the age of 20 that could have made him the man that he wanted to be, he wanted me to write that. So
Wow.
I made a promise to him to write a 3rd book at least, and to keep writing and to keep helping people. And I haven't written that yet, but during the first year, I just took the year off to grieve and grieve properly. And I nearly ruined my relationship with my wife because I was so angry I want to burn the whole world to the ground. And in the process of looking back over everything, and once I got kind of settled, I remembered a conversation I had with my uncle the day before I left Ohio after my dad passed, and he started calling me Superman. Because what I went through, he didn't think anyone could go through and show up the way that I did. And I'm one of those people that I know how I feel inside, and I hold myself accountable to how I feel. And I think I show up the way that I feel, but I really don't. What he saw show up was the calmest, most polite person ever. That when people dropped the ball on my dad's healthcare, I was kind to them, but demanding that they do better, and not in a way that said, you're a big pile of shit for this. And he was like, I don't know how you dealt with all that stress. And every day we showed up thinking this is the day that he falls apart. And every day you were standing there, like, taking care of us. Are you guys okay? Do you need anything? And we're there to take care of you. And I kind of, after a year of grieving, I sat around and I thought about what my dad had said and what my uncle had said, and I just it just kind of flipped a switch inside, and I realized that all of the work I did since getting sober in 2004 must have worked, because I look back at 2004 Tim, and he would have been in jail going through what I went through. I look back at 2006, 2007 Tim, he was more spiritual, but he would have went to jail too. Like, there were some people that just were not paying attention to what they needed to do in life that dropped the ball, and my dad's life ended early because of that. So I don't know. I think that sums it up pretty nicely.
Yeah. So going through a lot of stuff with your dad, and then like grieving properly and kind of remembering what that was at, um, reignited your passion for helping other people. Is that kind of a summary?
Well, actually, what reignited my passion for helping people was that at a certain point, once the grieving process got over, you have to reconnect with yourself. Part of reconnecting with myself, I looked over and thought of all of the people that I've met in life, all the men that I've met in life in particular, that I've never known how to create friendships with men. So I just started reaching out to dudes that I met and that I'm connected with on Facebook, friends of mine from college and friends of mine that I'd met in some types of workshops and stuff like that, and just started setting up. I wanted to have a meaningful, deep conversation with somebody every single day of my life, and I still do. So it started out like that. And then one of these guys that I'd met and I'd coached a couple times before, just like 1 or 2 sessions, not a full coaching session. His name was Mike, oddly enough, which is my dad's name. And we were talking, and I heard him talking about all these big plans and these big extreme income goals and all of this other stuff. And then I heard him say some things that I saw some disconnect, and I saw what his motivations were and what his underlying motivations were and how I could connect them. And basically he wants to make, 30, that like everybody online wants to make $30,000 a month, working 20 hours a week. and he actually has the capabilities of doing it. He's making 13 grand a month profits, working 20 hours a week. Like, he built this business from scratch. And I knew his whole story, but the reasoning that he wanted to make that, which is the reasoning behind most people's motivation, is he wanted to be a better dad. He wanted to provide for his family, and he wanted to provide them a lifestyle that everyone else would think is impossible. And he believed in himself enough to be able to do that. So I said, I used to be a coach. And he goes, dude, you saved my marriage. Of course I know you used to be a coach. I'm married today because you coached me. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. But I just heard something. If you want to come back on Monday, I can coach you. So I coached him, helped him find revenue, a way to change the way that he shows up so that he could double revenue in the same amount of time. I failed at that. He had to work 3 extra hours a week to make 30,000 instead of 13, but he was willing to do that. And then I said, the reason I showed you that is because of this. And I told him a thing that was private between me and him. And I said, that's the thing I really want to coach you on, because I sat at the end of somebody's life who worked their whole life chasing that dollar. And I know what he regretted. And I watched when nobody came in at the end of his life to say goodbye to him. And I want you to avoid that. So I'm going to coach you on how to get in touch with yourself so that you can be the dad that you've always wanted to be, because you might only have a week left. And he was like, what? I said, we live like we have all the time in the world when we don't, but we're living as if there's no time. Like, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for that.
Yeah,
so I'm going to show you how to find that gap and sit in between so that you have time for the things that are important and you're not stressed out about the things that aren't. Because that's the thing I learned with my dad. And I learned that through my perspective and through his perspective, is that we spend our lives worried about the things that don't matter while we're in the presence of the people that do. And that's just the worst feeling, is that I spent, prior to the end of my dad's life, I lived with him from 2010 to 2013. I spent that whole time stressed out about building a coaching practice. And I see how I showed up for him during that time, same way he showed up for me when he was stressed out about making enough money to support us. And I see how that there were so many times where we could have just enjoyed ourselves, enjoyed a sunset, went out and had a meal together. But my brain was so attached to the outcome of a future that may never exist, and I missed key moments of his life. So that's what I worked with Mike on, and he like you had hired what he says is $100,000 worth of coaching and education materials just to build his business, and he was like, you do it differently, and you need to be doing this for other people. And his wife sent a message to me, his son sent a message to me, and I decided that I needed to try it at least, And I hated it because I'd failed at it so much, and it hurts when you fail so much, and I resist everything that I'm supposed to do to build a coaching practice.
Failure's feedback, right? Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
that's why you're so successful now, because you did it your way. I don't know.
I can't believe that that it hasn't even been a year yet, and going from what I struggled with so 2006, I started coaching, and I've never been a full-time coach before until now. So
Awesome.
it's crazy to me that it happened in 6 months.
Do you think, I don't know, it's a weird question, I didn't know where it came from, but do you think that do you think it's different coaching like a men versus women?
I think it probably should be, but I don't. I
Explain.
just well, I think that the cognitive processes, the way that women communicate in general, and the way that men show up and communicate in general are completely different, to some degree. Uh, and it should be, I should have a different approach with women than I do with men, but I don't. I'm very empathy's my superpower. I don't know what it is, but when people tell me stories, I feel them. And then that feeling is associated with a memory of something I struggled with, you know? So if somebody's open enough to actually communicate truth with me, or at least answer questions that I ask them, then the approach is the approach. I just get on the phone and say, hey, what are you dealing with today? And then bring it back to what we talked about. And I somehow have this ability to connect dots that we're not, that most people aren't seeing, you
Yeah.
know. Um,
Do you think women are more likely to reach out for coaching support than men are? I know it's a generality. I'm just curious.
yeah, I think so. I think I think women find anything like that more acceptable. Opening up, being vulnerable, talking about your weaknesses just doesn't come natural to most men. I think that that's why, and it's always been natural to me. I've always been a deep feeling man. I'm more feminine than most men, but my wife would disagree. She's like, "No,
No,
you're a
no, you're
pretty
not.
manly
You're God.
man." She, but I actually cry more than my wife does. I things touch me deeply. They always have since I was a little kid. So um, I think like I went. One of my clients is has a manufacturing business here in the Dallas area where I live. That's why he reached out to me. He was like, "Oh, this guy." He heard me on a podcast, and he was like, "This guy lives in the area. Maybe I should talk to him."
Yeah.
So I started coaching him, and then he asked me to come in and talk to his people about coaching. And he sent out an email, and his business is mostly women admin positions, but there are men. And I think out of all of the men in his whole building, only two people showed up. And, no, yeah, two men showed up out of the whole room. There were only two men. And when we walked around, there were 25, 30 guys in the building. So one of the two men actually walked out in the middle of the conversation too. Once I started talking about certain things, he was like, "This isn't for me," and walked away.
Mm.
So I think that yeah, when it comes to life coaching, when it comes to coaching on relationships and stuff like that, I think more women would. If I turn the conversation around to talk about manly issues, masculine identity, or making money, I think that more men would show up. But the way that I express, I can only express from a place of authenticity on something I've already not conquered, but already dealt with to some degree, and have a little bit of self-awareness around. So maybe a year from now, you'll see a conversation coming from me about building a business, about being financially successful. But I've never wanted to communicate to any coaches or anything on that level. I didn't actually want to take on any clients that want a coaching business for that reason, is because I've seen so many people that can't build a business on their own teach business.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, for sure.
it seems like a
Um,
multi-level marketing scheme, coaching. You know,
it's like MLM for coaching. That's
yeah,
nice. You got to pre-buy so many class. Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Teach coach on how to be a coach.
Teach coach how to be coach. Ah, that's that too painfully real to be to not
Right?
be true. Yeah.
How many times have we spent money on business coaches that didn't know how to coach? You know?
That's fun. So,
And
if someone were like, what would be your ideal client? If their ideal struggle, do you have a picture in your head?
no, every time someone asks me about that and they give me an avatar exercise, it literally sends me into fight or flight.
Yeah. It's like,
Um,
don't make me do it. Fair enough.
I try like hell to do it. But one of the books I read recently about coaching was like, look, I know everyone tells you to do an avatar, but if you're a life coach, guess what? If they have a life, you can coach them.
Oh, that's fair.
Like,
Do you
so
have a
I
certain topic that you like? Like, do you enjoy helping people more through relationships or more through grief or through like, or just kind of no?
I can,
Whatever.
if anything, what I do most with people, and I don't even know that I've ever defined it like this before, and maybe it's because it's the one thing that I have to work on the most. It's the way you see yourself. You know,
Yeah.
like we have. I talk about the mirror a lot. Mirror.
Hmm.
Um, we see a reflection of ourselves in the mirror. It's the exact opposite of what we actually are most of the time. And we have in our minds, we have this projection screen that projects the whole like reality. Like we're bringing the optic nerve is bringing in stuff and it's reversing the image and then it's projecting it back onto a screen inside our brains. I'm not seeing what I'm seeing. We have that with our own self-image too, because we have a history. We have a conversation going on in our heads. And most people are dealing with that. Most people have somewhere where they got stuck on an identity. And I think that that's what I work with. I just don't know how to express that, you know?
Yeah. I think at work,
Because
so like people who feel stuck, but
mhm,
it's stuck on something important, like
yeah.
who am I and how do I want to show up in the universe kind of thing.
Yep. Well, not only that, but when you just say stuck, that's different for me when I'm thinking of it, because some people are stuck not because of their identity. Some people are really clear about their identity, but what they try to do to go from where I am right now to where I want to be, they either are not doing enough to get there, they're doing or they're trying to do too much too quickly to get there, and that actually creates a stuck feeling because the limbic system fires and then they get into fight or flight. And when you study the limbic system, the natural reaction is to freeze. That's that stuck feeling, is you're frozen in this fear of moving forward and moving past something. I don't think that everything comes down to just the way that you see yourself, but there are certain belief structures in the way you see yourself and what's possible for you that I find that most people that get themselves stuck, that's what they're stuck with, is
Yeah.
that, that like a few people that I've worked with in the past have been stuck on moving forward in the direction they want to move forward in because they can't see the possibility of having that without unraveling this, you
Mm.
know?
Yeah.
Like they can't see the possibility of creating the life that they want without burning to the ground everything they hold sacred.
Yeah.
You know?
Like this very all or nothing kind of thing, right? Like I can't be a better version of me without losing me, but then that's not
Yeah.
an upgrade, that's a replacement, right?
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
I can't help it. I nerd out once in a while. Um, so what would it look like or feel like if someone were in coaching with you? Like what would a session unfold like for you?
Uh, I don't know. That it depends on the person, really. I
Yeah,
mean, you've experienced like you. I'm sure there were times where there were days that you wanted to punch me in the face
just one.
because just what?
Just one. Just one.
But I think in the beginning, because obviously my goal is to get that trust going so that you can open up, so that we can get down beneath. Because one thing about coaching that I think most coaches know, I'm not sure that they know, some of them don't know outright, but the thing is never the thing. What you come to me for, I'm going to hold that carrot like I did with you the whole time. I'm going to hold that carrot. I'm going to hold that carrot. I'm going to guide you towards it. But that's never the thing. It's always something deeper and deeper and deeper, like
Yeah, I'd
Legos.
say I feel that's true. I found a fair amount of my clients all come to me because I've 20 years in business, and they all come in business and leave through life, I say, because Like I've had painters that started painting again and writers who started writing again, and they all came to help them do better at work.
Yeah.
So it's like
And the
this,
funny thing is they probably do better at work because they started painting.
oh yeah, exactly. It had this like positive, amazing residual effect of,
Yeah,
you up
but
level one place, it up levels.
I think I've been a bartender for most of my adult life. So I have that vibe. It's like pulling up to a bar and chit chatting with the guy that you trust. I like when you think of old school Sam Malone style bar. Sam, I'm having a problem, and he works you through it with the most common sense solution ever, which is, stop it.
Like, what do you think you should do?
Yeah. Well, what do you think you should do? Yeah, well, probably do that.
Yeah,
You
sounds
know.
good. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that most people, the feedback that I've gotten from clients is that even though sometimes the way I come across isn't what they wanted to hear or the way they wanted to hear it, as even when I get up in their face and they get mad, they get to a point where they want to punch me in the face, they can still feel that I said it because I love them. They still feel cared for, and they still feel that I'm still not judging them, So I think that I do get it in your face in a way that still won't feel judgmental because I don't care. Like I'm just pointing out what I see,
Yeah.
and I'm showing you the gaps that you're not seeing. And if that's how you want to show up, then that's fine. Show up like that. Just own it,
Yeah, that's fair. I I did some podcasts on this recently, and I think it's nearly my new mantra. I've been saying the only place for progress or healing is from a place of curiosity versus judgment.
Yeah.
And I think that if I were to have to give the 13-second, like, why should you talk to Tim? I would have two parts of it. Would be, the first is he's authentic as F, whether you want him to be or not, which is actually honestly refreshing. And the second would be, we come at it different ways, but I would say you pretty much approach everything with, that's interesting. Let's look at that a little more, instead of, oh. So when you say, I don't care, I think it's more, you're not attached to my outcome.
Yeah, that's what I mean by
Care.
that. I
Yeah.
care deeply.
You
I
care deeply, but you aren't like held down under the water. What?
I think you've heard me say this before. I really don't give a shit about your goals. I'm a life coach who doesn't care about your goals.
Yes.
What I care about is what you find that you care about through our conversations.
Yeah, and so I think it's interesting, because like I said, I think we come from different perspectives, because you do care. You just aren't going to let us bull crap our way into, judge, even the judgment part. You're like, I don't have to judge it. I don't really care. It's not good or bad to me. I've got good and bad in my past, and we're not having that conversation, right? You're like, we're having this conversation. So I think that you're an interesting mix of, you show up as you, and you don't judge any behaviors.
I don't.
You're more like, why'd you do that? Like, really, why? Not like why, but like, what can we learn?
Why would you do that? Why did you just do that?
Yeah.
And I think that during the year, I don't think I was like that before I went through what I went through with my dad. I
think I agree.
Yeah, because you remember me, right? There was a huge shift in the year that between my dad and getting you as a coaching client. And during our sessions, I actually, because I take the responsibility of being anybody's coach to a degree that I don't know, that it might not always be healthy.
Their clients don't know that you're going to take it that seriously. Yeah.
Yeah, but I have to work on the shit that I don't want to work on when I have clients. That's why it's such a good business for me. It's because for me to find the edges of my potential, I got to bring people to find the edge of theirs. Yeah. So what I learned the best lesson I learned, and before I wanted to be a coach, the thing that I learned about vulnerability is that when I look in the mirror deep enough and I work on the shit that I need to work on so that I can be the man that I want to be, not the man that, like, the man that I want to be is freaking 10 times greater than the man my wife would even want. Like, I am the man that she's dreamed about, is what she tells me. She, every now and then when I'm being so hard on myself, she's like, Tim, you're everything I've ever wanted in a man. Like,
You're already
stop.
my perfect, so chill.
Yeah. And I'm like, no, it can be better. It will be better, damn it. I will make this better. And she's like, I don't want any of that. And I'm like, but you deserve it all. You know, and I'm going to get it. And then I hold myself accountable to getting the stuff that she doesn't even want. It's hilarious. But while working through some stuff, before I got to the point where, okay, I'm going to set my goals again. I'm going to set them high. Not goals. I'm going to set my vision, and I'm going to work towards that. I got to this point where the judgment slipped away because I realized that there's just some cognitive reasoning cause and effects inside my brain that make me behave certain ways. Road rage or frustration, blowing up at my wife, or any of those kind of things. And there's a prediction and response mechanism in my brain that if I create my day in a certain way and it changes, biochemically changes somehow, if I support myself in a certain way, those things don't take over. So if that's true for me, it's probably true for you. It's probably true for that other person. So when I see people doing stuff and I notice it, I judge the fuck out of the behavior, but I don't associate it with the person.
Yeah.
It's just behavior. It's Charles Duhigg showed it in the habit loop. 40 to 60% of our lives are on autopilot. So if that's true, what we're judging is not each other. We're judging automatic responses to stimuli.
Yeah.
That's all we're judging.
Yeah.
So if we can come at it with that realization that, look, I can still judge that, but I can do it in a way that lets that person know I don't see that as you. I think that's where my superpower came into play, and that's where I got to be good at coaching, because our conversations will lead me to see something, and I'm going to throw it right in your face. And even when you get mad at me, you're mad at the fact I saw it and pointed it out, not mad at the fact that it's there, not mad at the fact that
I think from personal experience, from personal experience, I wasn't, after I processed, I wasn't mad at you, I was mad at me.
Yeah.
Because
that's one of the things I take with the coaching. If at a certain point you're not mad at me, you're not projecting you're mad at yourself onto me and saying, fuck him, fuck you. If I don't feel that, I don't think I've gone deep enough with you. Like, I want you mad at me. I know at the end you're going to be like, thank you. And that's one of the things of having a rough childhood. My dad used to call me Everlast as a kid because emotionally and physically I could take a beating. So I'll be that punching bag for you halfway through, you know, because I think people need that. I think people need to be in a relationship with another human being where I'm going to see your worst and I'm going to point it out to you in a way that when I see it, you're going to hate it so much, you're going to hate me. And I'm willing for you to hate me for a while. I'm willing for you to hate that.
I think that's the difference between like support and accountability. You can get support from lots of places. Coaches can give you support, but support is like, I'm here for you, bro. Right? Accountability is, you're not showing up for you, bro. But no, that ain't how we're rocking. And I think maybe the marks of a masterful coach is one that can ride the rail on that and know when they need to be huggy bear, show up, support, and when, like, yeah, we're not going to grow hanging out there, guys. You said this was your goal, and to be accountable.
Sometimes I switch back and forth a little too quickly, though. Like, I go from loving to smack in the face. You know what I mean?
So, maybe you got to work through that some. I don't know, but I would. So I'm going to wrap it up because we probably went a little long, like we always do, because we have such a great conversation. But Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. When we post this up, we'll make sure to put your contact info in the podcast details. But if any parting words for our listeners that you'd like to give some wisdom to.
Everything I would want to say is going to sound so cliche, but um, I think going back to what I said earlier in the conversation is that there are people in your lives that matter. They are your world. And getting focused on how you want to show up for them will change everything that you do. Learning how to juggle the tasks that stress you out so that you can show up as the best version of you for your kids, for your husband. I personally think that that's what changes the world. I really do. I think that if you just focus on what you want to be as a mom, if you have kids, or what you want to be as a dad, and juxtapose that with what you want to be professionally, and do both, I think that that's how we change the world. Is how we show up matters. I think is that what I want to say to the world. What you pay attention to matters. How you show up matters. You matter.
Well, thank you, Tim. I appreciate it so much. I look forward to hopefully we'll get to talk to you again sometime. And
Hope so.
I'll see you soon. Bye.
Love your face.
Love your face. Bye.